You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
You're listening to IRN, 2014 Border Zone International UFO Conference.
Anyway, welcome to Presidio. I'm Brad Newton. I'm the man of many hats in Presidio. Let's run down all the list of things that I do. I am the Deputy Administrator. I am the Executive Director of the Presidio Municipal Development District. I am the Director of Tourism. And I am the landfill administrator. But on a lighter note, we appreciate y'all coming to Presidio. We started off with a really good program last night. There's going to be more music over at the Due to the Dead Music Festival. If you go to EBGB, EBEGEBE, I put a little sample of the Mariachi Santa Cruz. And the mayor is very musical, and he has trained musicians here for about 20 or 30 years, and they've all split off and made different bands and everything, so you're going to get a real good example of all the different kinds of music. But on EBGB, I'll friend you right quick on that. EB's out in the hall somewhere, but he is our mascot for the city. And without further ado, let's get started. Mr. Dennis Balthazar is going to be your MC today. I'll come up and give you some words of wisdom along the way. One last thing, we have the T-shirts right back over here, and we're wanting to build a replica of the UFO that was involved with the Mexico's Roswell incident and put it on display down here. So with a $10 donation or more, we'll get you a T-shirt. So as you know, everything, all the events here are free, but this is one of our little sideline deals where we're actually want to get into your wallet. So please be generous, and we thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. I also want to welcome you to the third annual Border Zone UFO Conference, and particularly I want to thank the city of Presidio for hosting it, and Brad Newton and Noe Torres for gathering an outstanding group of speakers for you today. My name is Dennis Balthazar, and I'll be your master of ceremonies for the day, and I'm going to be introducing the speakers. I'll try to keep everything pretty well on schedule. We have about an hour and 15 minutes for each speaker this morning. We'll take a 15-minute break between the speakers. And before we get started, I got a couple of housekeeping things to take care of. If you have a cell phone, I would ask that you turn it off or put it on vibrate. Also of importance probably are the location of the bathrooms. Those will be out the hall there, out the doors to your left, so if you're looking for a bathroom, that's the place to find it. Our first speaker this morning, she will talk about a mystery that is more astonishing than any Indiana Jones movie. The strange skull found in a cave in northern New Mexico many years ago, and it doesn't look human at all, nor does it look like any other creature native to the earth. Could this be proof that our planet has been visited by extraterrestrials in the past? Is this the smoking gun that UFO researchers have been seeking for decades? Over time, the skull came into the possession of El Paso neonatal nurse Melanie Young, who has been studying it for years and is our first presenter. Melanie has appeared on the History Channel's Ancient Astronauts and speaks frequently at UFO conferences. Get ready to hear an amazing tale of adventure and suspense that is certainly stranger than fiction. The mystery of the Starchild skull. Please welcome Melanie Young.
Thank you for coming out so early this morning. You're in for a treat. This is the Starchild skull that you can see here. Starchild skull is going to be on this side. The normal skull's over there. Right from left, not a good idea for me. So the Starchild skull came into my possession in probably about 1998. through secondhand. The woman that found it passed away, gave it to a friend of mine who gave it to me and said, "Here, run with it." So what you see right here is what I found in a box in 1998. So where did it come from? It came from northern New Mexico. The story I was told came from Chihuahua, the state of Chihuahua, around the city of Delicias, which at the time was just a village, and I think that's in the Copper Canyon region. How was it found? Well, this young girl from El Paso and her family went down to Delicias to see the rest of the family, as is commonly done around here. And of course, the mine caves in the Copper Canyon region are not the safest place to be for a young teenage girl. So what they told the kids, please don't go out into the mine caves because they're not real safe. How many of you have teenagers? Okay, so you tell them not to do something. What do? They go right to it. So she got away from everybody and she ran into this cave, or walked into it exploring, and she found this. This is literally what she found. Lying on top of the ground was a skeleton of a human, totally normal. Shocking in and of itself because, who lays down on the ground and dies? Laying flat, So she started looking at it a little bit more carefully, and she noticed coming out of the ground was this hand, and it was wrapped around the arm of the other skeleton. And she noticed that it was extremely deformed. So she's not supposed to be there. This is really cool crap for a 14-year-old, 13-year-old at the time. What do? You've got to find out where that hand comes from. So she dug it up. The ground was very soft. It hadn't been touched. It's in a mine shaft. So all of this has been really preserved by by Mother Nature. She digs up the entire skeleton and notices that it is very small in stature, but it is totally deformed in every way. And so what does any curious teenager do? She gathers it all up, both skeletons, the complete skeletons, puts them in a basket and takes them home. So she's not supposed to be there. Who's supposed to have skeletons? She can't take it into the house. She can't tell mom and dad or anybody that she has it. So she hides it underneath a tree outside. And they're going to go home the next day. She thinks it'll be safe here, and somehow I'll put it in the car and nobody will notice. Like any teenagers really thinking through these things. But there's a torrential downfall. It floods. Around here, arroyos, it gets washed away. The next morning, when she goes to retrieve it, all she can find, there's the misshapen head. All she can find is the two skulls down the ravine. Now, some of them is broken apart, so it's all we have today is the Starchild skull with a little bit of the top teeth. The normal skull, it's so heavy, our skulls are so heavy, so durable, it's lasted. And you may be wondering why there are no bottom teeth. Our bottom teeth in the maxilla, the jaw, is not connected to our skull. It's connected by muscles and ligaments, and that allows us to chew. So those are rarely ever found with an ancient skull like this. Okay? So my first question is, what do I do with this? They gave it to me because I am a neonatal nurse. I worked at the county hospital, teaching hospital, on the border. I have seen almost every deformity, every genetic disorder that is out there. If I haven't seen it, I've seen it in the textbooks, and I've taught doctors how to deal with these things. Trust me, doctors coming out of med school really don't know how to take care of things. Nurses teach them, and we don't get paid for it, but that's another story. Okay, so my first question is, do I leave it in a box for the next 30 years for my kids to figure out what to do with it? And trust me, they wouldn't have a clue either. Or What else am I thinking? Is this a deformity? If this is a real genetic deformity of some sort, it's still significant because it's not in the textbooks. So we need to do more research on it. Why did this thing live as long as it did with as many deformities as it had? Or could it be a human-alien hybrid? That is all of the rage. We're all listening to all these abductees saying, oh, they've taken my sperm, oh, they've taken my eggs, and they're genetically manipulating our DNA. If that's the case, then we need, it's again, major historical value, and it's going to require some more research. Let's nail it in the coffin. Let's, stick it to the man, if you will. It's really happening. Or is this a completely new species? Alien or not, it's a new species. Again, major historical value, and it requires a lot more research. So research it is. Now, I don't know how to do the research, who to do it, when to do it, or where to do it. So what do? I start with going to our local MUFON community. They turned me on to Lloyd Pye. Lloyd Pye just happened to be coming through El Paso. If you don't know his work, he's the one that wrote Everything You Know Is Wrong. His main study at that time was human hominoids, which is Sasquatch, Yeti, and human origins is where was his expertise. When I met him, we met him at the Holiday Inn in El Paso. He just happened to be coming through doing a lecture there. And we set up, my local MUFON community set me up to have a visit with him. We walked into the Holiday Inn, sat down in the lobby, and I handed him a box. And in the box were the two skulls. He opens the lid of the box, and his jaw just drops. He takes a few minutes to collect himself, and he takes this thing out of the box, and he says, "What is this?" I said, "I don't know. You tell me." So we started talking about his research, and he told me what he was going to do if he ever found a Sasquatch. And he wanted to always prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, prove it scientifically, and put it in the history books. He had a plan. That plan fit very well with where I wanted to go with this. He was the man that I sent it with. Within 20 minutes, I had made my decision. This was the guy that I was going to go with as my lead researcher. I handed this skull off to him in 20 minutes. He immediately was on his way up to Laughlin to the International UFO Conference, and we introduced it at that conference that very next week. So what makes this skull so unusual? Besides just looking at it, the external shape. The top you're seeing is the normal human skull that was found with it, and then on the bottom is the Starchild. See any differences? Just a few. Actually, there are 24 differences in just the external structure. The biochemical differences, there's fiber. It's got a richer collagen in there. It's uniformly half as thick as the normal skull that was found next to it, okay? It weighs half as much. However, it's twice as strong, or stronger. The surface of our bones is covered with these little holes that, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but the Starchild doesn't have any. Those little holes are where the bone cells, as we make new bone, that's where the bone comes out at. There's a word for it, I've lost it. But that's how bone cells are coming to the surface and making things stronger. As they die off, they come up. Then we have microscopic fibers in the skull itself. There's red residue that we don't know what it is. The lower face is much smaller. There are no brow ridges. which is where our eyelids go into, which is what causes us to be able to see in bright sunlight. There are none. The sockets, the eye sockets, are totally different. They're short, they're thinner. The holes where where the nerves come out are in a different location. The optic nerves come out misshapen, definitely different. The roof of the mouth is flat. Ours is not. That allows us to talk differently. The chewing muscles are half the size of ours. The ears are much lower on the skull. Let's see, what else do we have? The inner ear is twice as big, twice as large as ours. Its hearing is going to be different. The neck muscle's half the size, but it holds up a bigger head. There's no external occipital protuberance. Now that's a big word, isn't it? If you'll feel the back of your head, there's a knot. That's where all your neck muscles attach to. There is none on this thing. You have one on the inside of your brain. That's what holds the brain up. The Starchild has one, but it's much smaller. How does that fit with the brain? The brain's much bigger. Okay? It's got this wide, flat back of the head. It's not cradle boarded. Okay? There's a crease in the front of the head. So it's kind of a heart-shaped head. Anybody got a heart-shaped head? It's not found normally in us. The brain capacity. Starchild's got 1,600 cc's. A normal adult has 1,400 cc's. A normal child has 1,200 cc's. Normally when you've got a 200 cc difference in brain capacity, it's a totally different species. Okay? There are 2 rows of teeth in the Starchild they're 2 rows up and there's teeth on the bottom. These teeth are worn. They've eaten. He's eaten long enough to have worn down the enamel on the teeth. And they're just as worn as the skull that it was found with. So it had to have been eating solid food on this planet for a very long time. So that tells us that it's really not a child. It's got to be at least a teenager or older. Okay? The brain size. The Starchild is on that side. Okay? This is an MRI. We put these things through it. See how much bigger the hole is where all that air would be? See how smaller the human skull is? It thinks differently. It hears differently. It sees differently. Totally different than what we have. But the one thing that we thought we had was a slam dunk on this was there are no sinuses. The Starchild doesn't have that cauliflower look of the sinuses. The sinuses are what makes our head, our skulls, light enough that we can hold it up. Also gives us our tone, our way of speaking. So if we didn't have sinuses, we'd have that nasal twang like you have when you've got a sinus infection, everything's swollen up. So it doesn't have those sinuses. Now, you can see the research if you really do it. There are people born with very, very small, minute sinuses. I don't know, it's about maybe 1 to 5% of the population. But this is no sinuses. There's no sign of sinuses, if you will. And that has never been seen before. The bone's thinner. We cut this. The normal skull is on this side. The Starchild's on that side. And you can see how different. Going to equate for the weight. And if you look real closely in the Starchild, you can see the bones and the way you can actually see the veins impression on the inside of the skull. We have that too, but we can actually see that there was blood supply of some sort, that there was different lobes from looking at that. So it's pretty interesting to actually, for me, as an anatomy buff, it was just really interesting to learn all of this stuff and see it firsthand. We cut these pieces out in our garage. Okay, what else are you going to do? Nobody else is going to do it. So the Starchild skull is so much stronger, we had to go get a diamond drill bit. The other one we didn't. We used 2 separate saw blades to do this because we ended up doing testing on it. So I want you to understand, we did it as cleanly as possible. And I've had people ask me, well, why would you use just a regular saw blade? Well, guess what? When you go to surgery in a hospital, we use Black & Decker tools. Okay? We really do. So it's not unusual to use Black & Decker tools in a medical laboratory environment. So we're not off the scale here. We just didn't sterilize it because I don't have an autoclave. Okay? When we looked at this under an electron microscope, this is what we found. These are very, very unusual fibers. We don't know what they're made of, but that's not found in any other bone that has been looked at on this planet. We don't have any of that in us. And this was found uniformly throughout that entire piece that was cut. Strange residue. If you look real closely into the holes of this, you'll see these little bitty red specks. We don't know what that is. When you and I die, there's bacteria that eat out all of our bone marrow so that the bone is completely fresh and clean like you would see on TV. Okay, it's not plastic like you see on TV, but it is clean. So there's bacteria that cleans all this out, but why didn't it do this? And understand that this is over 900 years old. The bacteria should have cleaned all of this out. But so why not? We don't know what that is. Okay? We don't know. The chemical composition, we stuck this under what's called an SEM. I don't remember what that all means. But the human one, it's on that side. Starchild's on this side. But take a look. Starchild has aluminum in it. It has more carbon in it. All of these points, if you notice, are totally off the chart from what a normal bone is. Again, we did this test on the skull that was found with it. So this was test done on the specimens that were found in the same place, that are the same age, in the same environment. So this leads to the question as what makes that different. Now I'm going to go back to the aluminum. Aluminum has been found to be a contributing factor in Alzheimer's. That much aluminum in a bone would be lethal. But yet this thing lived long enough to eat and wear down teeth. Very, very interesting. The eye sockets. Take a look at them. Our eye sockets are about 2 inches deep. This is less than 0.7 inches. And just a little different shape. It's not so much square and it's not a cone shape. Okay? And it's flat. If you run your finger around it, it's flat. Ours has bumps and stuff in it to hold it there. The eye sockets, see the difference? Those holes with the blue thing, that's where the nerves and the blood vessels come in at. You know, I don't know if you remember high school biology, but we have what's cones that we see colors and stuff. Those are in the very back. This is lower set. It's totally misshapen, totally different. You think that might have something to do with the way they might see in dark environment, such as space? The eye's going to have to be flat. It can't be as big as ours because it'd be popping out. With no brow ridges, it wouldn't have an eyelid that could cover it. So it's, again, something to think about. The teeth. This was the piece that was found with it. Take a look. The teeth are worn. They've got bumps and ridges in them from where they've eaten corn with pebbles in it and things like that. They're worn. It had to have eaten teeth. It had to have eaten normal food of the time. How do we know it's not a deformity? This is Dr. Ted Robinson. This is what he looked like back then. I don't think he'll let us take a picture anymore because he's gone gray. But he is a major in Canada, a big facial surgeon, facial reconstruction, and he's seen almost everything that you can think of. I'm not going to read this to you, but basically he's saying this is nothing I've ever seen before. He had it for 2 years. He took it to his colleagues. It's definitely of significant value, requiring more research. It is significant. You can't just pass it off as no big deal, which is what a lot of people have done. Is this real science? This is all the people that we have sent it to that are willing to put their name on it. Notice it's gone all over the world. The UK, British Columbia, Vancouver, London, the genetics lab here in the States. We've had 2 genetics labs, one in Canada, one here in the States, and the one that we're working with presently. It's real science. This is not just what we think. I'm showing you what we know. DNA, your basic DNA. You get DNA from mom and dad, right? Mitochondrial DNA is the DNA you get from your mother. That's what's in the ovum, the egg. Then you have your nuclear DNA, which is what's combined of both. We've been able to get both kinds out. Remember, this is 900 years old, carbon dated, gives us plus or minus. And it's been double tested by 2 separate labs. So we know that that's a reality of the fact. To be able to get DNA out of something that old is a feat in and of itself. Your base pairs, in us, your base pairs are the little rings of the ladder, the steps of the ladder. So there are 4 amino acids or proteins that make up your base pairs. Way above my head, we won't go into all of that. But just to say the least, human DNA has 16,569 base pairs. Those are specialized. They don't vary very much. We're allowed a variation of 120 variations in humans. That's what gives us our eye color, our teeth, our height, our hair color, that stuff. 80 more variations in Neanderthals makes them a different species. So far, in the Starchild, what we have found, there are 800 different variations from humans. Tells me that there's something significant, don't you think? It's got to be a different species. Got to be a different species. So here's the differences. Humans, we can have 120. Neanderthals, 200. Deanzieva is 385. For those of you who haven't heard of that, that's just another subhuman that predates humans. The Starchild has over 800 to 1,000 different base pairs, mutations. A chimpanzee has 1,500. So we've got a new species, if by no other means that. So in 2010, we've done DNA, we found mitochondrial, and we found nuclear DNA. We sent that to the NIH, which has the largest DNA base program that we can put it through that compares it to everything that they've got so far. And in that, the blast test, here's what we saw. If we set the parameters as lax as possible, just let it run, so that we could just see if it matched anything. And we found that some of the code is similar, but large amounts are not. Now, why would it be similar? Well, it lived here on Earth, so it ate the same things. It was able to live here, so it had to have something similar to us, or it wouldn't have been able to survive at all. So, this is the actual test. You can call NIH and you can get this study yourself. And it found no significant similarities. No significant similarities. What does that say? It's a totally different species. Notice I'm not using the word alien. I don't know. It's just a different species. So, one of the really cool things that we noticed was the FOXP2. The FOXP2 gene is the gene that allows us to speak and hear. There are no variations in the FOXP2 in a human. None. You don't survive. But what we found is the FOXP2 has 56 different variations. 56, which makes it a totally different species. And that's just 56 out of the little bitty piece we've been able to do. Now, how can it be human-like, but yet not human? It lived on the same planet. It lived in the same things. Do we share DNA? We've all heard that we share DNA with monkeys. We share 90% with cats. We have fruit flies. We share with yeast. So if you ask me if this is a hybrid, well, it could be, but yeast could be also a hybrid. So let's just leave it at it's different. Okay? So, it shared the same environment, breathed the same air. This is just telling us that that's why there are some commonalities there. How do we know it's not a mutation? Well, we can make anything in a lab, but will it survive? Probably not. This lived long enough for the teeth to wear and to grow, but yet it's not. That means it can't be just a human deformity. I want to be real clear. Human deformities. You can have one deformity and survive. You can have two and survive. You have three. If you live to 2 years old, it's a miracle. To have 24 and live long enough to eat and have your teeth worn, that is a miracle. Okay? We can make any combination in the lab. Is it going to live? Maybe not. Does this make it an alien? Well, if you wanted to do some reconstruction sketches or the clay stuff, again, remember that's up to human interpretation. But it could look very much like what people claim to have seen. Now, when we had the reconstruction on the clay, they put the eyeball in, we asked, how did you get that eyeball into that shallow eye socket? He literally said, I just cut it in half so it would fit. People don't have a perception that they can put through our human eyes to fit this. They don't know how those eyes would look. Again, the eye sockets are very flat. Scientifically speaking, they have now found that astronauts' eye sockets flatten when they're in space. If they're in space longer than 6 months, they will notice that their eye sockets, their eyeballs flatten. You've got gravity as a place. You've got them looking into darkness. It's going to affect it. So that could have something to do with it. But this was just recently found in the last 5 years. Their eye sockets will flatten. So that's the only way we can think of why that happened in this species, in this instance, is it had to have come from a zero gravity environment at one point. Bone marrow, again, we talked about that. This could be bone marrow, but why didn't it get eaten up by bacteria? I don't know. Human bone marrow is completely consumed by bacteria. How many of you have heard of us? The main reason you probably haven't heard of us is you're not connected to maybe not as intrigued as some. We've been on National Geographic. We've been on BBC, Discovery Channel, TLC, CBS, Fox, History Channel, Animal Planet. We've been around, but some people just blink and don't catch it. I still have people coming up to me, I saw you on TV last night. Well, that was filmed 10 years ago. So it's getting rerun. We're getting more and more recognition. Lloyd Pye was my lead researcher. Last year at this conference was the very last time he spoke. He died in December. It's hit us all very, very hard. I still have a hard time thinking. So if it weren't for him, you wouldn't be hearing this. I just want you to realize that how important he is. So where do we go from here? We have to finish what we started. There's no other way. We have to finish the testing. It's currently going on. We have a lab that is willing to let us put their name out there, but we have to come up with a down payment. They've seen the work. They have been doing the DNA on the down low. They've been giving that to us for free. Testing used to be, when we started, was going to be 1 to 7 million. Now we've gotten it down to 250,000 for the next 2 years. Okay? That's all we need. Anybody got that? I got a PayPal. I'll be glad to take that right now. Okay, now why do you care? I think you should care. Because it's not just about proving that aliens are real. It's not just about proving that we've been visited. But there's so much more. What can this do for us as mankind? This is why I'm involved in it. How can this help us? The fibers, osteoporosis, birth defects, autoimmune disorders. If we can figure out why that bone marrow is still there, we can fix that. Hearing, eyesight. The eyes are different. The ears are different. Speech disorders. The list goes on and on and on. This research is going to help the rest of humanity if we can just get it done. How can you help? Donate your time. Donate money. Donate your knowledge. Tell everyone about this. It's important that people start demanding answers. You know, we all want answers about whether Roswell happened, we want the government to come out and all this, but we need to know more demanding answers, I think, for humanity, for the health care, for our safety and our health. So we're looking for investors. We need somebody to commit to an investment of $250,000 for the next 2 to 3 years. Once we get that into escrow, then we can start the DNA testing. If you know somebody who can do that, we're willing to give you $25,000 off the top. Today. The minute we get that contract signed, it's yours. You can contact us at contact.com@starchildproject.com. Okay, we do have some products for sale. We have the resin replicas over there, 250. We have the 3D laser cubes for $50, and the limited edition t-shirts for $15. A t-shirt will buy us a base pair. Okay? Simple as that. Keep up with the project. Facebook, Twitter, starchildproject.com. You can contact me through contact, or you can contact me through Melanie at starchildproject.com. Any questions? Okay. Yes, I do. If you will just email us at contact Starchild, that we will get that out to you. Okay? I don't have it on me right now. We just came up with this within the last 2 weeks. Anybody else? Yes. You too.
What do you think the long-term effects of being in space on the lifestyle?
You're asking, well, I mean, it could be anything. You're in zero gravity. I can imagine that it's going to flatten out the eyeball. You're going to have to change how you perceive color and light, because there is no color. It's black or white. Unless you're in the space capsule, I would think they have colors. But, if you're looking out into space, it's going to be black or white, I would think. But it's a guess.
You think that might actually maybe cause a retina detachment?
If they have retinas. On us, I don't think it would cause a retina detachment because of the way our bodies are built. That's going to have to do with pressure more than anything. But for them, I'm not even sure they have retinas. So, anybody else real quick? Okay, I'll be over there if you have any questions. If you want to come touch and feel, we actually have the stereolithograph, which is the exact same weight, size, and everything. And you're welcome to touch and feel the skulls. Okay, thank you.
You're listening to IRN 2014 Border Zone International UFO Conference.